All right. Happy New Year. This is the first Injustice for All of 2026. Happy New Year, Judge. So, listen, this is going to be brief because it's New Year's Day, and I want to stay on this Minnesota scandal. Oh my God. Honestly, this is just the tip of the iceberg.
It's all across the country. Wherever the blue party runs urban areas, you'll find it.
Right. Carolyn Levitt, the White House press secretary, said, yes, there are going to be some people in high positions ended up in handcuffs. So
there should be. They are violating the public trust, and that's the worst order of criminality. When someone trusts you and you have a fiduciary responsibility to them and you betray it, that is the worst kind of misadventure. It's awful.
Right. So I want to play this clip because the latest is now Trump has frozen all federal funding going into Minnesota for daycares. The federal government has.
We're getting some breaking news in. We're hearing that the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services will freeze all childcare payments to Minnesota. That's the agency. The White House saying, by the way, that all of this is coming in light of growing scrutiny surrounding alleged fraud involving child daycare centers across the state of Minnesota. In fact, the Deputy Secretary for HHS, Jim O'Neill, just sent this out. He says, we have frozen all child care payments to the state of Minnesota. You have probably read the serious allegations that the state of Minnesota has funneled millions of taxpayer dollars to fraudulent daycares across Minnesota over the past decade. Today, we have taken 3 actions against the blatant fraud that appears to be rampant in Minnesota and across the country. He lays out a couple of bullet points. 1, I have activated our Defend the Spend system for all ACF payments. Starting today, all ACF payments across America will require a justification and a receipt or photo evidence before we send money to a state. Number 2, Alex Adams and I have identified the individuals in Nick Shirley's excellent work. I have demanded from Governor Walz a comprehensive audit of these centers. This includes attendance records, licenses, complaints, investigations, and inspections. By the way, Nick Shirley is the independent reporter on YouTube and X that posted the video that has sparked some extra renewed interest in this topic, if you will. Number 3, moving on to number 3, we have launched a dedicated fraud reporting hotline and email address at childcare.gov. Whether you are a parent, provider, or member of the general public, we want to hear from you. He says, we have turned off the money spigot and we are finding the fraud. Along with this post came a video. It's an announcement alongside Alex Adams. He's the Assistant Secretary at the Administration for Children and Families. Let's play the video.
Hello, I'm HHS Deputy Secretary Jim O'Neill. I'm here with Assistant Secretary Alex Adams. Alex oversees the Administration for Children and Families. Intrepid journalists have made shocking and credible allegations of extensive fraud in Minnesota's child care programs. We believe the state of Minnesota has allowed scammers and fake daycares to siphon millions of taxpayer dollars over the past decade.
My office, ACF, provides Minnesota $185 million in child care funds each year. That money should be helping 19,000 American children, including toddlers and infants. Any dollar stolen by fraudsters is stolen from those children. Yesterday, I spoke directly with the director of the Minnesota Child Care Services Office. She could not tell me with confidence whether those allegations of fraud are isolated or whether there's fraud stretching statewide.
Today, we have taken 3 direct actions against the blatant fraud that seems to be rampant in Minnesota. First, I have activated our Defend the Spend system for all ACF child care payments across America. Starting today, we require a justification, receipt, or photo evidence before we make a payment. Second, I have just signed and sent a demand letter to Governor Walz. I required a full 360 review of these centers. This includes attendance records, licenses, complaints, investigations, and inspections.
And third, we've launched a dedicated fraud reporting hotline and email address at childcare.gov. Whether you're a parent, a provider, a member of the public, we want to hear from you. Let me be crystal clear. ACF expects every state to uphold the highest standards of oversight, monitoring, and accountability for federal dollars. Minnesota is no exception.
We're committed to holding bad actors accountable. Regardless of rank or office, anyone who's involved in perpetrating this fraud against the American people should expect to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
You know what? I bet what's going to happen is when they get deep into this, they're going to find a lot of elected and appointed officials are getting money under the table, kickback and advantage. And
Yes.
those people need to be put in jail. That's one of the reasons they cover this stuff up. That's how you get all of these multimillionaires who have only had government paychecks for their entire adult lives or for a substantial portion of it without having had any other type of real job. I'm not saying that a government job is not a real job, but it's not the highest paid thing you can get employed to do.
Yeah, the guy, Nick Shirley, who actually uncovered the Minnesota fraud, he believed that the politicians on a city level, state level, and federal level that represent the state of Minnesota knew about it, but did nothing because Somalians, they are a very large voting bloc. So you want
Yeah,
them
but what I'm saying is it's worse than that. In other words, the Somalis are a cover for the appointed and elected officials to steal. They get a piece of the action, but it's cover. It's these Somalis that are doing it. So you can look at them, but let's move on because it's a humanitarian thing. This is just the Republicans. They're trying to do this low down thing where they hate everybody and they don't care about those who are suffering and who are victims, which is just BS to cover the fact that they're stealing. Not the Republicans. There might be some, but the indications are it's the Democrats.
Yeah, Minnesota is a heavy blue state.
Everywhere we are, theft is. In other words, if you're a Democrat, you can say everywhere we are, a mess is. So everywhere they are, a mess is, I guess you could say, especially with the new pick your pronoun type thing.
I want to share Tim Walz's response to the Trump administration freezing the funding in the state of Minnesota.
Why doesn't he do something about it in his state so that there's no need to freeze the funds?
Meantime, the Trump administration freezing child care payments to Minnesota as federal authorities dig deeper to root out fraud in the state.
But Democratic Governor Tim Walz is hitting back, saying the president is politicizing the issue.
Yeah, David Sputz joins us live from Washington, D.C. He's got the latest. David?
Corrected, as you see right there, and put up the correct spelling. Governor Tim Walz responding to the overall controversy about the funding, saying this is Trump's long game. We've spent years cracking down on fraudsters. It's a serious issue, but this has been his plan all along. He's politicizing the issue to defend programs that help Minnesotans.
So
somebody is objecting to the feds investigating. Well, the feds do investigate stuff, bank robberies and things like that. So you mean to say that if some foreign people who burglarized the country just busted on in, trespassed without invitation, they came in and stole some money from your bank and the FBI came in and investigated, you'd get upset? Because somehow or another it's discriminatory or evil. Come on.
So here's the thing. This is what's messed up because, of course, you see, this is an $8-9 billion fraud scandal, and it's specifically in the Somalian community. So the rest of the state of Minnesota, the citizens of Minnesota, have to suffer, specifically when we talk about daycare center. That's what's messed up, because you have a lot of innocent people, a lot of other cities and counties who were not defrauding the system, they're going to be left out in the cold.
Why
Not
would they be left out in the cold?
because he
All
stopped.
Minnesota, but all Minnesota has to do is initiate its criminal justice process, indict, prosecute, convict, and demand restitution and get the money back. But they've been letting this go on for years, all through the Biden-Harris administration. So, see, they had the means to retrieve the money. They could have cut it off. There were all sorts of indications. The money is going out, tens of millions of dollars at a time, and there are no students being kept. Nobody's going around to take a look at what's going on. People are living large off of a government paycheck, and they're not doing what they were hired to do, which is go check it out, see what's going on. Where is this money going? You mean there's no way they didn't have any methods or any interest in securing confirmation that the money was being spent as indicated? I mean, anytime somebody gets tens of millions of dollars put in their hands, isn't there some policy that says, let's go see if they're spending it right?
But should everybody else in the state outside of Minneapolis have to?
Well, it's their state. They elected Walz. They elected their state senators, their state representatives, their judges, their district attorneys, their sheriffs. Don't you think that they bear some responsibility for not having insisted that somebody enforce the law or conduct reasonable investigations into the expenditure of public funds? I mean, look at Georgia. They're looking at Fannie Willis and her corrupt crew down there. Where's the money? What happened to it?
That is true.
So what happened to Minnesota? Like that alderman for Minneapolis, St. Paul, that seems to be soaking up all of the savings in terms of bodyguards and personal security for him that would have been saved by them cutting back all of the police after the George Floyd incident, where certain citizens have absolutely no police protection or services and have to provide their own. And nobody wants to do anything about that because it's politically correct to do what they've been doing, which is the criminals are victims, so we should help them out and understand their suffering.
I forgot about the George Floyd. Yeah, he's from Minnesota. I forgot the city. Is it
Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Minneapolis? Okay, St. Paul. So I forgot. Yeah, and they turned that section where he got killed they turned that into like a free zone.
Well, yeah, I went by there 2 years ago, and my crew, we went down there, and several hours we talked to the people. The people that live there are in a real live mess. The police and emergency services won't come in, and they had to go buy all of these stretchers so they can, like they're on a battlefield. Volunteers carry people who've got heart attacks, broke legs, been hurt with crime. The rape prices went up, burglaries went up, aggravated assaults went up because there's no police there and they won't come in. So, to be politically correct, those citizens who live there got abandoned to the blue thing, horrible. We need to cut the police because or whatever. Well, what about their vital function to protect folk that live there? They get none. So the people that live there are angry as they can be. They don't even have functional traffic lights to a great extent. So they've got people out there in fluorescent vests directing traffic. But others are satisfied who don't live there because they've punished the police.
Well, speaking of Minnesota, slightly switching gears, it says Assistant Attorney General Harmet DeHelen is officially suing Tim Walz, Minneapolis, Minnesota Public Schools for anti-white discrimination. Their employment decisions for teachers reportedly prioritizing Black men teach fellows in underrepresented populations. So she's suing them for anti-white discrimination, I guess, for not hiring white teachers because they want to prioritize hiring Black men. Do you
There's
think?
need for Black male teachers if they are strong masculine figures. But I warned people decades ago that the way things were being handled, where DEI was foreshadowed, it was not going to work out very well in the long term because just this kind of thing was going to happen. There would be a quickly developing perception that it is reverse discrimination. And the way the Democratic Party was carrying it out, it looked like it. You could do everything that you wanted to do in a race neutral fashion, but they had to go make it all about race and victimization. And that's not going to go very far in the American system where it's supposed to be evenly balanced, like those scales of justice we display as an emblem.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's my question though, because just because it seemed like with this current administration, if somebody Black that is hired or is working in a certain position, people automatically are going to assume DEI. So you mean to tell me if it's majority white, that's going to satisfy your taste of thinking DEI is not being implemented? And on top of that,
It isn't supposed to go that way either. It's supposed to be who can do the best at the job.
right.
I
So
had some very good white teachers going through school, very strong white guys. And I had some very strong Black guys going through school. It gave me a good send off into life, both of them.
well, here's the thing. So when we're talking about Teach for America, that's a very large, one of the largest unions, teacher unions in this country. Over 80% of the teachers are white women that they hire.
Yeah, that's true too.
And there have been studies shown if you have Black men in the classrooms, especially in schools where kids may act out a little more, they implement discipline. Students listen, especially the boys. You have less disruptions. Male teachers matter, whether
Yeah.
you are Black, but Black ones too. So,
Well, like here in Memphis and Shelby County, which now is a unified school district, young Black females are doing better than any other demographic in the public schools here. And at the very bottom of the heap are Hispanic males, and then they're followed at the bottom of the heap by Black males. And what's going on is that the majority of the teachers in the system are female and Black, and they have a great appeal to the girls who happen to be of that ethnic persuasion, but nobody's appealing to the boys. As one of the women said long ago, I vividly recall it. She says, woman with a whole bunch of spangles around her wrist, going itsy bitsy spider as she going down the water spout, as she's jingling away, has very low levels of relevancy to the circumstances of the boys in the class.
right. I want to read this right here. It says Attorney General Pam Bondi, DOJ's has pursued an aggressive crackdown on states and universities that engage in affirmative action policies, opening similar investigations into Rhode Island and the University of California. Minnesotans, quote, Minnesotans deserve to have their state government employees hired based on merit, not based on illegal DEI. The statute specifics that the justifications, the statute specifies that the justifications are required for non-affirmative action hires. The Minnesota Department of Human Services said in a statement defending its policy, quote, "The Minnesota Department of Human Services follow all state and federal hiring laws. Justification of non-affirmative action hires for some vacancies have been required by the state law since 1987. The White House repeatedly clashed with Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, who sharply criticized the president since running for VP, on the Democrat ticket back in 2024. So it says Ellison has filed multiple lawsuits against the Trump administration seeking to block several of his policies, and the DOJ sued Minnesota last month, this was a couple months ago, to stop the state from providing in-state tuition for some undocumented students.
Well, California's kind of dug its own hole to go stew in and rot in. It's a cesspool, sump in the bottom of a cesspool. And that's because of what they did with Bakke back in the early 1970s to set that up. They disregarded the 1851 provision of the California state constitution that said the University of California is not just there to provide excellent education, but is specifically there to train, provide, and encourage leadership in all of the various and sundry constituencies of the state. It's interesting in that in 1851, they talk about freeing the Chinese from the influence of Chinese tongs, which were gangs, and the Mexican community from the influence of Mexican gangs, and providing for their colored citizens who have escaped from slavery since 1851 was 10 years before the Civil War started. And it says that. And Bakke came about because the California officials deliberately ignored the constitutional mandates that are required, which put a different perspective on the whole thing. So they don't even like to think about it, don't raise it, don't consider it. And a lot of them that I've talked to are completely ignorant of the Constitution's provisions. I mean, state constitution is novel. It's 174 years old. So, I mean, don't you think somebody would have been interested in it? Says it's a long, long section about the University of California and the need to provide leadership for all essential, demographics in the state. So it is what it is. And then they have that advanced placement track nonsense where if you go to a high school that has lots of advanced placement courses, you get advantage of the fact that an A is treated as a 6.0 rather than a 4.0, a B is a 5.0 rather than a 3.0. And if you're in an advanced placement track because your school has enough AP courses, then you get an extra grade point average tacked on top of everything else. And you get somebody that goes to a school, and there are plenty in California, usually in downtrodden areas that do not have any such advanced placement courses. Then those students, even if they got straight A's, the best they could get would be a 4.0. And somebody with A's, B's, and C's can come out with a higher grade point average and get into the University of California because nobody deals with leavening the playing field because of these AP courses, like Beverly Hills High School. They have so many that there's a limit on how many a student can take because it just knocks the curve out of the ballpark. And that's not fair to anybody else, say going to Fremont High School or Jefferson High School or Washington High School in Los Angeles. So it's bad.
And just one more quick thing on this DEI in the education system, right? Because Mayor Zohan Mandani, who is sworn in as the New York City mayor today, he announced this past Wednesday he will appoint Kamar Samuels, a longtime New York City educator, and Manhattan superintendent as the next school's chancellor, right?
Proud today to appoint Kamar Samuels as New York's next school's chancellor, because this moment demands a new generation of leadership that both understands our school system and has a transformative vision on how to remake it. Kamar is that leader. I chose Kamar for this impactful role because of his expansive vision of possibility for the future, and because he will lead with two qualities too rare in public service: transparency and accountability.
But the controversy behind this person is, it says Samuels, who have been an educator with New York City public schools for almost 2 decades, is known for promoting racial diversity through school mergers and for working to dismantle the gifted and talented program, for which some critics argue is racially biased. So he worked to get rid of the gifted and talent program because he was calling it racially biased. And now he is appointed school chancellor in one of the largest school systems in this country of New York City by the new mayor, Zohar Mandani. So he's going to be overseeing, well, it is the nation's largest school, public school system. He's going to be overseeing 900,000 students, 1,600 schools, and 135,000 employees. And he wants to get rid of gifted and talented.
Well, you know, it's a shame. Our systems are being further and further slanted toward the least able, the lowest common denominator. And the gifted people that advance humanity are being neglected, unless maybe it's sports.
So to wrap this up, all in all, you know, the fraud out of Minnesota, Ohio, they're starting to uncover a lot of fraud coming out of Ohio with the Somalians. And, you know, I think they're going to start going state to state. And I think that's very important. I think every state now should have a hotline for people reporting fraud, because it's a lot of money that they're ripping off on a state and federal level. So what are your thoughts overall on the Trump administration freezing the funding? And what do you foresee with this Minnesota fraud scandal?
Well, I mean, the way that the feds usually influence the states is through money. So it belongs to the people of the United States of America, the money that's being spent. It doesn't just belong to Minnesota. So the other 49 states are effectively saying, hey, we don't like what you're doing, or at least the House of Representatives and the Senate put together collectively would not like this. And the chief executive officer of the government, the president, selected by the electoral college that we voted for, doesn't like it. So get it together, and, you know, it's up to you to do something about it. You have the means in hand. And unless you want the feds to jump in and start returning federal indictments, states, you have the means to go after them and get the money back in the hands of your people. Correct the problem, and the money starts flowing again. That's like today, you know, otherwise, I guess these blue areas are used to this thing where all the kid gets for punishment is a timeout. He doesn't get spanked, doesn't get anything taken away. So maybe they've got a timeout on the money. If you want to look at it that way, hey, do better. You have the means in hand. Let's see you do something. Come on, we want to look. You know, what are you up to? What are you going to do? So take some action, and we might reconsider. And they'll probably go try and window shop for the right judge to cherry pick to try and get it stopped or enjoined, and it'll go up to the Circuit Court of Appeals and then quickly to the U.S. Supreme Court.
Okay.
It will be what it is.
All right. Well, listen, Happy New Year, Judge and everyone. And thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Injustice for All with Judge Joe Brown. And we'll see you in the next video.
You made another orbit round the sun. We didn't go boom in some interstellar catastrophe, so count your good luck. No asteroid hit.
Oh my God. That was back in 2000 when the century turned, the asteroid supposed to hit.
Well, yeah, except what I'm talking about was almost 66 million years ago, and it was quite a few miles wide, going at about 84,000 miles an hour when it hit. That's kind of rough.
All right. Say Happy New Year to everybody.
Happy New Year. May you have a good, fruitful, enjoyable, and adventurous year. And may things return more to normal.